Hello everyone! Today I am playing the old arcade classic Pacman! This is a game I have not played in years, probably because I spent most of those years playing Tetris. But anyways, today I'm going to try to get the kill screen. Let's see how we do!
Again, Masters! I just replaced those windows!
Maybe some light reading will calm me down. Huh? What's this doing in my reading pile? Oh, I haven't read this one in 5 years! This is a fun read! Ready Player One is a book that my dad heavily recommended to me. I remember most of my late teen years was him asking me to read the dang book. So, I finally did. And when I did, it was awesome! Gonna warn you all now, this is 100% going to spoil the book, so if you'd rather read it and finish it before watching this video, do it! And before you ask, yes, I am going to go over some of the differences between the book and the movie as part of the review. So spoilers for the movie as well. Not that it matters. Anyways, let's get into the story. So the story is told from the first-person perspective of Wade Owen Watts, a kid who lives in the Stacks, which is a series of stacks of trailers in Oklahoma in the year 2045. So about 34 years after the book was published, and roughly 24 years from this year. So August 16th of this year would be the 10th anniversary of this book's release. Let's go over the world here for a minute. So the entire world is going through what is known as the energy crisis, which causes a lot of social and economic turmoil throughout the world. So it's your basic dystopian future minus the evil government. The government is actually hardly mentioned in the book as it doesn't matter to Wade, and he says so himself. No, the main importance is this. The main escape for the people of this world. The OASIS. The OASIS was created by James Donovan Holliday. It is every gamer's dream. It's basically an online virtual reality system which consists of a visor and haptic gloves to control your avatar. There are also haptic suits and treadmills that can come with the system so it can simulate everything you're going through in the game. Now, you may think this would come with a monthly subscription or something like that, right? Nope! It was free! The only subscription you had to pay was 25 cents. Yes, a quarter. The best part? There weren't any ads or serious microtransactions. Now, you could buy things in the game, but you only had to use in-game credits, and those in-game credits would soon become the currency of this world. Now, clearly, this Oasis has made James Halliday a lot of money, but here's the thing. He had no close family members to leave literally everything to when he died. And this is where the actual story begins. Halliday was dead. Dead as a doornail. Now, every person who ever owned the Oasis was wondering who in the world was going to gain control of the Oasis and the company that came with it, Gregarious Simulations. A video was released after Halliday died that explained the following. He will give all of his fortune, the company, and his avatar's powers to anyone who discovered his Easter egg. Now, I'm sure most of you know what an Easter egg is, but for those who don't, it's basically a little reference hidden in a video game. The best example that you'd understand is in The Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening. A fair amount of the enemies and NPCs are references to many other games, the most recognizable being the Mario games. Another good Easter egg is finding Majora's Mask in A Link Between Worlds. I think my all-time favorite Easter egg is finding Link and Samus in Super Mario RPG: Legend of the Seven Stars. Now here's the thing. The Oasis is littered with Easter eggs and references and everything. It's because Gregarious Simulations bought the rights to all kinds of movies, music, etc., so that they could all be featured in the Oasis as their own planets. So yes, there is a Star Wars planet, there's a planet dedicated entirely to arcades. There are some planets that are basically recreations of old text adventures, but with images. There are all kinds of references hidden in the Oasis. So you think this would be easy, right? Nope. This Easter egg isn't just any old Easter egg. This is one that is hidden within the game, that is supposedly too hard to find. Even Halliday himself admitted it. In the video, he left behind a riddle hidden within a book he wrote. This riddle leads to the Copper Key, which is supposed to lead to the Copper Gate, which leads to the Jade Key, which leads to the Jade Gate, which leads to the Crystal Key, which leads to the Crystal Gate, and finally leads to the Easter egg. Now, let's get back to our protagonist here. Wade is living a horrible life with his aunt, who he was not very close with. He usually spends his time in an abandoned van logged into the OASIS under his avatar name Parzival. Now the story really begins with Wade in this abandoned van logged into the OASIS going to school on a planet called Ludus. Parzival is getting ready to finish up some of his final classes for the year, as he is graduating, and discovers a clue to the riddle while sitting in Latin class. The main clue in the riddle was the D&D module Tomb of Horrors. Now there were entire planets dedicated to Dungeons & Dragons, but no one could find the tomb. However, Parzival just realized that the Tomb of Horrors has been on Ludus this entire time. So after school, he makes his way to the tomb, and it is an exact recreation of the illustrations and descriptions from the module. Seeing this, I'd like to play the Tomb of Horrors in a D&D session. Although I heard it's very unforgiving, considering it's meant for 1st edition. I don't know if I'd last long. Anyways, Parzival makes it to the end of the tomb and faces the Lich in a game of arcade Joust. I've played a little bit of Joust. It's basically a game where you play as a knight on a bird, and the object of the game is to survive and kill the other guy. And get a high score, like literally every other arcade game. Parzival is successful and gains the Copper Key. Now gaining the Copper Key put him on a scoreboard that is on Halliday's main website. On his way out, Parzival runs into another avatar by the name of Artemis. Parzival had been reading her blog for some time, but never met her in person. She was upset that she was not the first, but managed to get the Copper Key shortly after Parzival did. Later on, Parzival's best friend H got the Copper Key as well. 2 others, Daito and Shoto, later got the key. Anyways, Parzival figured out the next place to check for the Copper Gate was by beating the video game Dungeons of Daggorath on a recreation of Halliday's old computer. Then, when he goes in the gate, he has to go through a simulation of the film War Games, with him starring as the main protagonist, David Lightman. Now, I've seen War Games, and I can confirm, it's a good film. After going through that simulation, Parzival learns another riddle to lead him to the Jade Key. This one actually stumped him, but he didn't have time to go over that now, as he was being summoned by the head of Innovative Online Industries, IOI, Nolan Sorrento. Now let me pause this for a minute and let me explain IOI. IOI is not the evil government ruling over the dystopian world. I want to make that absolutely clear. IOI is just a big company that owns practically everything and wants to own the OASIS to put ads into it and a more expensive monthly subscription. So basically, this is what would happen if Disney owned literally everything entertainment related except for one video game company. Now, when I say IOI owns everything, I mean everything. They have their own specific Wi-Fi connection that's made public, they own the news network, and they own several upgraded automated sources of transportation. It's not just the entertainment industry, they own the media. Anyways, Parzival decides to meet with Sorrento to basically raise his hopes and then tell him no to his face, because generally, IOI is hated by literally everyone, since they don't want IOI's OASIS. How IOI is trying to win the contest in finding Halliday's Easter egg is they have their employees, known as Sixers, play the game and do research. And everyone knows what they look like, because they all have the same henchman avatar, and their avatar names are employee numbers. Anyways, Sorrento tries to bribe Parzival with money, fame, literally everything, until he threatens to murder Wade in real life if he doesn't cooperate, as Sorrento knows who he is in real life and where he lives. Wade thinks he's bluffing and logs out. He wasn't bluffing. A bomb goes off and destroys his aunt's trailer, along with many other innocent people. Wade was at a safe distance away in the van, but he knew he wasn't safe for long. Through some endorsement checks for running commercials, since he's famous, he was able to get enough money to get out of Oklahoma and move to an apartment in Columbus, Ohio. Once there, he spends the next 6 months trying to figure out the riddle that leads to the Jade Key. During these 6 months, he also gets a lot closer with Artemis, to the point where they have an online relationship. However, at a club during the birthday party of Ogden Morrow, Halliday's closest friend, Parzival confesses his love to Artemis, but she tells him that he doesn't really know her and that this is all online, etc. She cuts all contact with him, which leads Wade to become depressed and isolated. But there are some good things that happened. Parzival got a little closer with Daito and Shoto, as he helped them with a side quest involving the old 60s anime Ultraman. The prize was a capsule that allowed the owner to turn into Ultraman once a day for 3 minutes. Parzival left it to Daito, as he deserved it. After so long, Artemis finds the Jade Key. During his search in Sector 7 to find the planet, Artemis was on, he was tracking the Sixers who were tracking Artemis, he plays a perfect game of Pacman on the planet Arcade. The prize for this was a quarter that was on the arcade cabinet. Because you see, back in the day, to reserve your turn on an arcade cabinet, you would put a quarter on the screen, or on the dock, or whatever, to just say, hey, I have next game, this is my quarter, don't touch it. That's how they did it back in the day. Parzival wasn't sure what the quarter did, but he knew he couldn't remove it from his inventory and inspect it, because you need to remove items from your inventory to inspect them, and then you're like, okay, I know what this does, but he can't remove it. It's frustrating. Anyways, H eventually reaches out to Parzival and gives him a clue to the next key, as he had found it. Parzival figures it out and makes his way to a planet, which is a recreation of the text-adventure game Zork. However, the Sixers are not too far behind, as they had an artifact that could tell them the whereabouts of any avatar they chose. Parzival quickly gets the Jade Key and then gets out of there. Well, guess what happened when Daito and Shoto made their way to the Jade Key? The Sixers broke into Daito's apartment in real life and threw him out the window. He lived on the 43rd floor. Yes, they killed him to win this contest and knock him off the scoreboard. Shoto goes to see Parzival sometime after that and gives him the Ultraman beta capsule. Sadly, the Sixers have figured out the riddle that leads to the Jade Gate and shortly gained the Crystal Key after finishing it. Eventually, Parzival figures out the riddle is a reference to the movie Blade Runner, which is based off the book Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep by Philip K. Dick, which I will be reviewing for a future Masters of Literature, so stay tuned for that. Anyways, Parzival makes his way to the planet recreation of the city and enters the Tyrell building, where he uses the Voight-Kampff machine to enter the second gate and play a simulation of the game Black Tiger, or as it's known in Japan, Black Dragon. I might play it for you sometimes, it seems interesting. For beating the simulation, Parzival is gifted a giant robot of his choice, and the riddle to the next key, which is a reference to the Rush album 2112. He makes his way over to the planet based off the song, and plays the guitar in the Temple of Syrinx to gain the Crystal Key, and the clue to the final gate, which is at Anorak's castle, the home of Halliday's avatar, the wizard Anorak. However, the Sixers are already there, and they have an impenetrable force field blocking the whole place. So, Parzival comes up with a plan. He sends out a message to Artemis, H, and Shoto, telling them where the gate is and how to find the Crystal Key. He is currently hiding under the alias Bryce Lynch in the real world, so he purposefully puts himself in debt with IOI, which leads to his arrest and indenturement to work under IOI until he pays off his debt. However, Wade has an ace up his sleeve. He timed a transfer of a significant sum of money to go to his account that would be enough money to pay off the debt so they'd have to release him. Wade also found a series of IOI passwords from the black market sites. He used those to hack into the system and give himself admin powers. So, he set up a trap through his IOI employee OASIS account. Basically, he would order explosives inside the force field and have the droid detonate them at exactly noon. Wade also learns just how much information IOI has on himself and his friends. He escapes shortly after finding out that IOI planned to kidnap Artemis and Shoto and force them to help with the final gate. He goes to an OASIS cafe and logs in. Parzival meets up with his friends and tells them everything. He also sends out an email to everyone in the OASIS telling them about his plan to launch an attack on the Sixers. However, since Artemis, Shoto, and Parzival are all on the run, they can't fight in their current positions. But someone is there to help them! Ogden Morrow himself decides to help them out. He mentions that himself and Halliday had admin powers over the OASIS, meaning their avatars could go anywhere, are immortal, and could wipe out whatever they wished. Halliday only told Ogden to interfere if absolutely necessary. And now was absolutely necessary. So, H picks up Wade in her RV. Yes, H is actually a girl. Her avatar was a man. Ogden scheduled for Artemis and Shoto to be picked up via private jet since both of them lived outside of the United States, Artemis living in Canada and Shoto living in Japan. They all meet up at Ogden's house where he gives them all systems to log into, and the battle begins! Hundreds upon hundreds of OASIS users are there to fight, and the bomb goes off and the shield disappears and chaos reigns. However, Sorrento has an ace up his sleeve. The giant robot he chose for beating Black Tiger was Mechagodzilla. And if you know your monster movies, you know Mechagodzilla is no joke. Shoto distracts Mechagodzilla while Parzival, H, and Artemis make their way to the gate. All three of them had to make it because the riddle leading to the last gate contained reference to Schoolhouse Rock, specifically my favorite math song, 3 is a magic number. Shoto's avatar is killed in battle, but Parzival decides to tackle Mechagodzilla. But he loses his giant robot in the process. But he still has the Ultraman capsule, and with that, he destroys Mechagodzilla and Sorrento's avatar. But he knows it won't be long until more Sixers come back in full force, so H, Artemis, and Parzival open the gate. But then, their avatars are killed before they can step in. IOI had purchased a planet-wiping bomb named the Cataclysm. Every avatar in the sector was killed. Well, except for Parzival. Remember that perfect game of Pacman? Well, the quarter was an extra life. Parzival entered the gate immediately after coming back into the game. The first challenge is playing a game of Tempest. The next challenge was a film simulation similar to the War Games one, only this time it was Monty Python and the Holy Grail. And if you've never seen that movie, fix that immediately. After that, the final challenge is unlocking Halliday's computer with a password. Parzival figures out the password and gains the Easter egg. Parzival also gains all of Halliday's admin abilities, complete control over the OASIS, and the ability to press the big red button in case he needs to delete the OASIS forever. So, Wade released a bunch of footage about IOI's evil doings. And when Wade logs off, he finds out that Sorrento is being arrested for all of those evil doings. Anyways, Wade then meets Artemis, or Samantha, in real life, and then they kiss, and everyone lived happily ever after until the sequel. Jeez, that was a lot of awesomeness to get down. Now, I'm not going to go over every single reference there is within the story, because that would be a video all by itself. Now, let's get to the part I'm sure you're all excited to hear me talk about. Oh boy, here we go. I believe going over the differences between the book and the movie could also be a video all by itself, but long story short, I hate the movie. All of the Dungeons & Dragons references were taken out. IOI was painted to be the government big shot instead of just some big company who wants to commit murder in order to finally gain the last entertainment Infinity Stone. And all of the obscure 80s references were taken out as well. Now, I understand rights issues and all that jazz, but still, even a good chunk of the anime references were nowhere to be found. And there were a lot of them! I could go on for hours about how much I hate the movie, but I'll spare you from that and head straight to the review. Overall, this book is really good. While it's not really something you'd be forced to read in school, it's a fun read for entertainment purposes. It also contains some of the best references I've ever seen in my life. I'd recommend this book to anyone 16 and up. There is some harsh language and some sections that I can't share here because this is a clean channel. Now, this is normally the part where I do an in-depth analysis, but this time I want to keep this brief. This is a clear story about illusion versus reality. Every day, the people of this world immerse themselves into an illusion to escape the world all around them, much like we do today with our own systems. In truth, reality is where you can find true happiness instead of a numb feeling that keeps you isolated from the outside world. While reality can bring pain, it can also bring the greatest of joys. I think a lot of people need to realize that. And that's Ready Player One. I hope you all enjoyed...
Ready Player One? I love that movie.
Get out.
Aw, come on. The movie was really good.
I said get out!
Okay, I'm leaving.
Happy reading, everyone.